talk English.
You're just a weed in a garden, son.
Oh, man.
I want you to listen to the sound of your world ending.
That is heavy.
And here's the last one. This is the fortunate life.
Yeah, you definitely aren't going to find those lines in any standard English learning textbook.
Definitely not. I mean, they are harsh. They're, completely uncompromising. And they carry just a massive amount of cultural weight.
Right.
So today, for those of you listening who are, advanced English learners wanting to really grasp how the language is actually used outside the classroom, our mission is to unlock this linguistic treasure chest.
Exactly, because we're doing a deep dive into the really distinct kind of tough guy dialect and the rural American English that you hear in the hit TV drama Yellowstone.
Yeah, the dialogue on that show is it's some of the most distinctive on American TV. We're decoded all today.
Yeah.
From the specific ranch vocabulary to the cowboy wisdom to those words that, honestly, they only make sense if you know rural America. Right, because there's this huge contrast, a staggering contrast, between the polite, sanitized dialogues we're all taught in classrooms and the rough, kind of dusty reality of rural Western communication.
Oh, for sure. It's totally different from urban American slang, too.
Yeah, exactly. It's a culture that really values stoicism, hard physical labor, and strict hierarchies. The language reflects that directness.
So, okay, to understand how these characters speak, you first have to understand the world they inhabit, right?
Right. The language doesn't just exist in a vacuum.
No, it's deeply rooted in the dirt, the cattle, and just the sheer vast spaces of the American West. Let's start with the foundational vocabulary, the setting.
Okay, yeah. At the center of all of this is the ranch. Now, in everyday English, a learner might, just casually confuse a farm and a ranch.
Right. They seem similar on the surface.
But culturally, in the West, a ranch is this massive defining property. It's specifically dedicated to raising livestock across just sprawling acreage.
So it's less like a traditional agricultural business and more like a small empire.
Yeah, a feudal empire, almost. And the currency of that empire is the herd.
The herd, meaning the massive groups of cattle. Right.
Exactly. The cattle that require constant movement and protection across the pasture.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second, because looking at the labor force, it maps onto this highly rigid ecosystem. You've got the bunkhouse, for example.
Right, the bunkhouse.
Which is, it's like the break room and the living quarters. But culturally, it operates like a barracks for the ranch hands.
The ranch hands being essentially the entry-level employees doing the really grueling daily manual labor.
Right. And then you have the wrangler.
Yeah, the wrangler is a specialized worker, someone who works specifically with managing the horses.
Okay, and we also see terms like the rodeo, which most people know as the competitive events like bull riding. But then there's branding.
Oh, branding is a huge one.
Yeah, because in a modern corporate sense, branding just means, marketing a product with a logo.
Right, but out west, it is returned to its literal violent origin. You are literally burning a permanent mark into an animal to declare ownership.
The stakes there are just so permanent.
They really are. And that severity, it creates a very specific language around boundaries. You'll hear characters talk about the fence line.
Oh, and the endless task of fixing fence.
Yes. Beyond just the literal maintenance of, wooden posts and barbed wire, fixing the fence line is this constant metaphor for defending your territory from outside threats.
That makes total sense. And the physical scale of the land they're defending, it fundamentally alters their perspective, right? Like you hear the phrase big sky country.
Right, which is commonly used to describe Montana.
Because there are literally no tall buildings.
Exactly. It's a landscape completely devoid of natural obstructions. When you stand under this endlessly open sky, it reinforces this sense of human insignificance.
Wow, which kind of strips the vanity out of how people speak.
Totally. You also see that spatial psychology in terms like open range, which represents unfenced land and ultimate freedom.
Contrasting directly with the back 40, right?
Yeah. The back 40 originally meant the most remote 40 acres of a property. But the dialect has morphed it to mean the most isolated, hidden part of anywhere.
Like the place where things happen completely out of sight from the law.
Exactly. And the harshness of that environment bleeds directly into how these characters interact. The language becomes just as deliberate and honestly just as fenced in as the land.
Okay, that brings us perfectly to the mechanics of how power is actually established through speech, because this blew my mind. Standard English treats family words as affectionate,
Usually, yes.
but rural Western dialects invert them. Let's talk about the word son.
Yeah, son. When an authority figure, especially a patriarch like John Dutton, calls another grown man son, you have to understand, it has absolutely nothing to do with warmth.
Right, which reframes that very first quote I read, "You're just a weed in a garden, son."
Yes. In that context, the word is a weapon. Calling an adversary son asserts absolute dominance.
It's basically a dominance signal.
Totally. It infantilizes the listener. It strips them of their status. The
Yeah.
subtext is basically, I am the unquestioned authority, you're the subordinate, and you are entirely out of your depth.
Wow. It establishes hierarchy without even needing to yell.
Exactly. It's a calculated verbal strike.
And that value for direct, uncompromising action, it shows up in other phrases too, right? Like, do what you gotta do.
Oh, that is like the foundational motto of this entire culture.
Do what you gotta do. It feels so heavy.
It is. It captures the expectation that you have to accept hard, sometimes morally ambiguous choices without any complaints.
Because complaining is a character flaw out there.
Right. The elements are constantly trying to destroy your livelihood, so complaining is useless. That's why being hard-headed is actually deeply admired.
Wait, really? Because in a city, if someone calls you hard-headed, they're saying you're stubborn and terrible to work with.
Right, but out there, a hard-headed person stands their ground when the pressure increases. It's a good thing.
Oh, I see. And the ultimate validation of that is the phrase, "There's no quit in you."
Exactly. It's not about being the smartest. It's purely about endurance.
Okay, but I'm admitting some confusion here.
What's up?
If this culture prioritizes direct, brutal honesty so much, why is so much of their dialogue actually incredibly vague? Like, they'll just say, "We're done here," to unilaterally end a major conflict. No explanation.
Right, it seems contradictory. We expect direct people to speak explicitly, but this is the concept of Western understatement.
Western understatement.
Yeah. In this culture, verbosity, using too many words, is viewed with deep suspicion.
So, like, over-explaining your feelings or plans is a weakness.
Exactly. Emotional and verbal restraint are read as indicators of strength and competence.
Oh, so saying less actually forces the other person to do the mental work? It's a power move.
Let's analyze it in practice. If someone says it's a situation,
Right. In a textbook, a situation is just a neutral event.
but through Western understatement, it's a situation signals a massive catastrophic problem. The speaker refuses to panic, and by understating it, they project total control over the chaos.
Wow. What about, "We'll handle it"?
In corporate America, that's polite customer service. On a ranch, it implies dealing with a threat decisively, quietly, and often, extra-legally.
The vagueness gives them deniability.
Yes. And the most potent example is, that's not how we do things.
Which sounds so polite, like a gentle reminder of local customs.
Underneath, it's a severe warning. It means, if you continue doing this, there will be devastating consequences. By refusing to spell those consequences out, they force your imagination to fill in the blanks.
And the dread from your own imagination is way worse than a screamed threat.
Absolutely. It is brilliant psychological warfare.
Okay, that transitions perfectly into what happens when these characters actually do choose to speak at length. Because when they do, it's basically this dark, fatalistic cowboy philosophy.
Right. They avoid modern psychological jargon entirely.
They use metaphors pulled right from the earth, like bone dry.
Yeah. Literally, bone dry describes a creek bed during a severe drought. Figuratively, it describes a person devoid of empathy or emotion.
The lack of water equals a lack of humanity.
Exactly.
But my absolute favorite metaphor from the sources is the concept of being downstream.
Oh, downstream is such a beautiful example of how geographic language becomes figurative.
Right. Literally, it's just the direction water flows. But figuratively, it encapsulates the unavoidable consequences of an action, like, you'll feel this downstream.
They are talking about the future.
Yeah, it's like a geographic butterfly effect.
Yeah.
But where the butterfly effect is chaotic, downstream is about inevitability.
Right, you can't stop a river.
Exactly. Gravity is pulling that water toward you.
Yeah.
If poison went into the river miles away, you're eventually going to have to drink it. You can't outrun your past.
And that sense of inescapable gravity is the core of Western fatalism. Let's look at John Dutton's speech style. It is its own dialect of rural power.
I like the quote, "The only thing that changes is what you're willing to endure."
Right. It suggests the world is inherently hostile and unfixable. The only variable you retain agency over is your own pain tolerance.
Which is the total opposite of modern self-help culture, where you're always told to optimize your environment and seek comfort.
Dutton's philosophy argues that comfort is a lie. You can only optimize your armor.
Which brings us back to the second quote I read earlier. I want you to listen to the sound of your world ending.
It's terse, it's fatalistic, and it's intensely authoritative.
And what about the third quote? This is the fortunate life. Taken out of context, it sounds like a gratitude journal entry.
But placed within the reality of the ranch, it's a very dark gratitude. It acknowledges the daily physical sacrifice and violence required simply to maintain their land.
They know they're fortunate, but the price is constant war.
Exactly. And it's no surprise this philosophy resonates so deeply online. Millions of people who have never set foot on a cattle ranch are adopting this language.
Because in a digital world that feels hyper-chaotic, adopting this stoic language projects grounded resilience.
Exactly.
And, this language isn't just confined to a fictional Montana ranch. This dialect maps onto a huge swath of actual rural American culture.
Oh, a massive regional overlap. You hear this understatement and pacing throughout rural Southern American speech, country music, the Midwest, Texas.
Right. Let's look at some everyday regional vocabulary, words like y'all, fixin' to, reckon, holler, and ain't.
Textbooks might incorrectly imply those are lazy grammar, but they are highly efficient linguistic tools.
How so? Like with reckon.
Reckon means to think or believe. Saying I reckon instead of I definitively know introduces subtle humility. It acknowledges the unpredictability of the world.
Oh, that makes sense. And fixin' to.
It signals immediate future action. I'm fixing to go. It strips away the extra syllables of standard future tense to say action is imminent.
Wow. Okay, let's put this analytical framework into practice. I'm going to run a quick drill.
Oh, I love a drill. Let's do it.
Okay, 4 rapid-fire rounds. I'll give you a Yellowstone context. You identify the meaning. Ready?
Ready? Fire away.
Round 1. A ranch is under a hostile takeover. The patriarch surveys the panic room and simply says, it's a situation.
That is Western understatement. He's refusing to panic, acknowledging the severe threat, but signaling total emotional restraint and control.
Perfect. Round 2. A worker drives out to the absolute edge of the property to fix wooden posts.
They are fixing the fence line. And beyond manual labor, they are sending a geographic message about border defense and sovereignty.
Nailed it. Round 3. Someone warns a corrupt politician, you'll feel this downstream.
The downstream metaphor. It means there will be unavoidable, inescapable consequences later. Mathematical certainty.
Exactly. Okay, final round. Round 4. A young ranch hand gets thrown violently off a horse, gets right back up, bleeding, and grabs the reins. A veteran says, there's no quit in you.
That is a high compliment. It means you are tough, you endure pain without complaining, and you have earned your place in the hierarchy.
Amazing. It really is a masterclass in reading subtext.
It really is.
So for our learners tuning in, let's do a quick vocabulary-focused recap. We covered 5 key terms.
Right, we had ranch, the massive Western property for livestock.
Wrangler, the specialized worker managing horses.
Branding, burning a permanent ownership mark onto cattle.
Big Sky Country, the vast, open, buildingless landscapes of places like Montana.
And understatement, using fewer, vaguer words to project power and control.
Exactly. We started in the literal dirt, learning how the physical reality of a cattle empire requires a vocabulary built around boundaries.
We saw how a warm word like sun becomes a dominance signal.
We decoded cowboy wisdom, realizing that metaphors like downstream connect human struggle to the unstoppable forces of nature.
And we discovered why verbosity is a critical weakness out there. Saying less is the ultimate power move.
It totally changes how you read any high-stakes interaction. You learn to listen to what isn't being said.
Right. And it leaves us with this big cultural insight. We live in a world that pressures us to over-communicate, to overshare, to use as many words as possible.
Yeah, everyone wants a personal brand.
But what can we learn from a culture that views silence as strength? Could talking less actually give you more power in your own life?
That is such a fascinating thought to leave off on. Next time you're about to send a defensive 5-paragraph email, maybe just try writing. We'll handle it and see what happens.
See how the power shifts.
Exactly. We'd love to hear from all of you. What's your favorite Yellowstone quote, and what does it mean to you? Drop it in the comments. Bonus points if you explain it.
Definitely.
And hey, if you're new here, subscribe so you don't miss next week's deep dive.